Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you all had a good weekend. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and welcome to the TDR Trade to Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network. 2 more weeks until Christmas as we inch closer to the holiday season. So how are the markets performing heading into that holiday season? Well, there's a few stocks we want to highlight today, including one that's up over 30% in the last 3 trading sessions, which is why we want to point this out and why you should watch this podcast right now. So which company it is, we're going to dive into it. So let's welcome in our 2 gents, TDR millennial entrepreneur Anthony Varrell and TDR lead financial writer Benjamin A. Smith. Good day, gents. Hope you both had a good weekend. We'll get you out of here real quick, Anthony, because I know you're heading to the Monday Nighter for the Dolphins game.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. Art Basel is going on in Miami, so there was a bunch of stuff going on all weekend.
Yes. As I said off the top, Ben, good to see you, bud. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm very well. Thank you.
We're inching closer to the holiday season. We had some interesting news, obviously, on Friday pertaining to New York. Saw a few stocks rip. MSOs did well as well. So let's begin with that and kick off this week. What are you seeing right now, Anthony, on the first trading day of the week? And are you watching this closely as we head into the holiday season? Does it have any kind of momentum as we, like I said, progress towards the Christmas time of year where things?
Yeah, I mean, MSOS had a really good week last week. It had about 29 million in inflows, and it was up around 7.5% total on the week. That's very positive. I'm expecting it to be muted going into the end of the year. I'm not expecting to see a lot of crazy volume. I'm not expecting to see a lot of price action. I mean, to be honest, after Thursday of this week, I'll probably put blinders on to whatever's going on in the market. As it's going to be doldrums from now until the end of the year. I don't know if we're going to get beat with tax loss selling. I mean, I do concur with Ben, as he brought up on previous episodes, that there really isn't anything to justify tax loss selling that's in the tape. I don't really expect that to rear its head. But I mean, yeah, volume was down pretty much across the board today, with the exception of New Lake Capital Partners, which we'll get into later in the show. But it was a good week last week. Let's see if we can continue that strength this week, but we're not off to a good start, to say the least.
Not surprised by that, are you, Ben?
Not really. Looking at the numbers, MSOS at 706, down over 5% today. I don't think you could derive too much meaning from that. It's going to be a slow session. It's going to be a slow end of year period. It usually is. So news flow isn't there. Traditionally in the sector, when news flow isn't there, share prices generally tend to fall. And, perhaps you saw something like that happen today. So I don't expect much from, going to the end of the year until early of, 2024.
Okay, fair enough. But that's no surprise. But people shouldn't be too concerned. Relatively flat as we start to check out during the holiday season, right?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, people are checking out, and news flow is not going to be there. Descheduling decisions probably not going to be there. So, expect a lot of shenanigans with the tape. I wouldn't put any stock into things either way, either direction. Today down 5%, but I don't think it really means much ultimately.
Trulieve was down 7.27%. Thanks for that highlight, Marcus. Again, I don't think there's anything really to worry about. Nova looked good today. Did you guys get a chance to see that? I did not.
I don't. It's not a stock that I watch.
Who is Nova?
Commonly, I mean, Nova's the partnership and acquisition by SNDL.
Oh yeah,
that they decided to leave it as a partnership versus an acquisition.
Yeah, it was up 3%, so a decent day. But all in all, no surprise whatsoever as we head into the holiday season, as we try to keep things busy and lots to talk about as we gear up for 2024. Let's now move into some of the legislative FOIA leaker Shane Pennington. He now is an interesting story, Ben, believes that we could see rescheduling happen, and it's likely based on the HHS documents. Do you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So for people not following the story, Shane Pennington, along with another individual, through an FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, leaked the information of those documents that were sent over, and they were highly redacted. but he leaked those documents in their entirety on social media. And he made some inference this weekend in a Substack about what they could mean. Now, again, you can't put too much stock into this because most of the documents, at least 150 plus, were redacted. But he was able to glean some insights, and based on the fact that he facilitated a conclusion, for example, that marijuana has abuse potential of less than other substances of Schedule 1, Schedule 2. And he made a couple other conclusions, basically to come to the conclusion that he thinks that everything's going in the direction of rescheduling to Schedule 3.
Yeah. That's encouraging to say the least, right? I
think so. Like I said, you got to take it with a little bit of grain of salt because it was mostly redacted and you don't know most of the information in there. But, I think from the information that we can glean from those documents, I think he comes to a logical conclusion, and that's sort of in line with what most people expect and what we're hearing from, institutional partners, portfolio managers like Dan Aaron and so forth. So I think he's on the right track.
So interesting information to say the least, but let's not jump to any conclusions, right?
That's what I would say. Yeah. I agree with his assessment. I wouldn't set this in stone based on that, but I think he's in the right direction. And he was able to glean some insights because not everything was redacted, but it does come to a logical thesis. And I think we're going that direction. We will find out probably in Q1 of next year whether that's true or not.
Yeah, makes sense. Robostotle writes, do you guys think rescheduling by DEA will happen end of year? We've touched on this. That is a resounding no. That is not happening. You're not getting any DEA announcement. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. It's December 11th, and I think a lot of people have checked out. Don't you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're getting an announcement between now and the end of the year. I hope that I'm wrong. I would very, very much so like to be wrong in this instance.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot to celebrate, but I don't see it. I'm not trying to be negative, just a realist. Like, that ship has sailed as far as I'm concerned, getting a actual announcement in this calendar year.
Yeah, we have had some decent conversations though with some pretty sophisticated investors that are now floating around with this industry that are doing their due diligence on specific companies. But again, this is going to be a wheels in motion, going to take a few months, I still think, just to kind of manage expectations. But again, the message that we keep hearing is towards the end of Q1. But again, who knows if we're right and or wrong. Marcus Smith writes, as Trulieve, Cureleaf, and an Air investor, you have to hang in there because rescheduling announcement, MJ on Florida ballot news, etc. Bingo. We've obviously made that clear in the last few podcasts.
Those are some of the best names in the space. I wouldn't be, not advice, but I wouldn't be sitting there looking at daily movements.
No.
Those are some set it and forget it names as far as the cannabis space is concerned.
And speaking of being an Air investor, Marcus, we're actually posting the David Gobert podcast that we actually recorded with him on Friday. That's going to be posted tomorrow. And happy to share that on Wednesday, we're going to be recording with Boris Jordan from Cureleaf, chairman of Cureleaf. That's going to be posted on Thursday. So lots to talk about. I think it's been close to 14, 15 months the last time we've had Boris on. So that'll be exciting podcast that we'll have lots to talk about, right?
I am pumped. We've been chasing Boris for some time now. I am pumped to get him back on the show and have a nice conversation with him about everything Cureleaf.
Yeah.
I don't think we talked to Boris since we were at
Chicago
MJ Biz in 2022. So he was in the back of the limo or the back of the Cherokee or whatever car we were driving then. But yeah, it's been a while.
Back of the 86 Chevette. We were rode in style with TDR, big budget that we had back then. But yeah, it's great to have him back.
The Grand Cherokees are nice though. They're actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
They were decent, that's for sure. But needless to say, I was pretty grateful to have him to spend the time with us. You drove the wheels, Ben, as we're driving through traffic. But needless to say, good to see him back on and lots to talk about. So if there's any questions that you guys want to know from Cureleaf and Boris, leave in the comments below right now. We'd love, obviously, to have any questions that you guys want answered. So leave us your comments below and let us know what you think. This is the TDR Traded Black podcast here at the Benzinga Television Network. This is the first segment Into the Wire. We're highlighting the biggest headlines in cannabis and psychedelics, crypto and AI. Let's now switch to headline number 3. Federal reform is moving. Anthony, let's get an update on the STATES Act.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a revamped States Act. I've had the time to actually go through it. While it's not an actual legalization bill, it does decrim cannabis and carve it out for the states. It does actually have very strong language into interstate commerce. And I mean, the one thing is right now with this act, the main roadblock is Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. That being said, the bill's main sponsor, Dave Joyce, is a Republican.
Okay.
So, I mean, if they want to do some political posturing here, hey, let's take the wind away from Biden. Let's get this done. Let's do something that's very popular on a national stage. At least they have the common ground that they're both in the GOP, despite their differences. It's solid. I mean, it's progress. It's another bill, but unfortunately, unlike Schedule 3, which can be done with the wave of a pen, this is bound to the system of the formal federal government. So we all know how that bodes for us thus far. It's a bright spot. It's good. It's revamped. It's got language in it that's very favorable to the industry. I think it's got some things that even optimists of the cannabis industry would be against. I don't know if we're really ready for interstate commerce or if we want full-fledged interstate commerce. I know that I don't, for obvious reasons. I think it would cause chaos in a lot of the MSO landscape. But it's good. It's just another bill that's out there. It's another conversation being had by main political figures up in Washington, and it's just another talking point, which is nice.
Good interview we had actually earlier today with Jesse Shannon, Chief Commercial Officer of the Cannabis, to talk about New York, but we were really talking about branding, and if we do get rescheduling, really painted the picture on the amount of illegal dispensaries within New York, but how that is slowly but surely heading in the right direction. But I thought it was an interesting conversation, but we're not looking at this as like they're putting actually, even today, based on Friday's announcement, they're already getting their wholesale model in place. So they're like not wasting any time. But as far as like the whole New York landscape, there is some work, but the feedback that I got is they're definitely trending in the right direction, but it's still going to take a year or two before we actually see anything lucrative as far as things completely done right in that state, is what I gathered. I don't know what you thought of that, Anthony, but it was interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it was a solid interview. It's always good to talk to Jesse. I mean, I'll let everybody kind of watch it themselves and get their main takeaways. But I mean, the main takeaway from it is wholesale is now. Retail is going to be strategically and tactically done on a go-forward basis, but they are ready to roll out on both verticals.
Topic that we've talked about from time to time too, Ben. Any news if and how Kronos is going to spend their cash now they are cash flow positive? That is the $64,000 question. A lot of money, but not really a big strategy in play from what we've seen for quite some time, right?
It's not even a company I really follow, to be honest, all that closely until they deploy the capital, because there's really, they have their operations, they have, fairly stable income and all that. They don't yet make a net income. There's really not all that much exciting about the company except that big cash hoard. And that's not to say that they don't have a viable business. It's just to say that there's not a lot of, growth generation excitement around that. It's really about where they're going to deploy the cash next. And I'm willing to, I'm wondering whether they're going to deploy most of that in the US when it becomes feasible.
So it makes sense for anyone to buy that out with how much cash they have?
I think you'd have to look at the valuation. I'd have to go crunch the numbers and all that. Do you know what the valuation is top of mind, Anthony? Or
market cap?
Yeah.
Their market cap is $770 million. So it's almost trading par value of cash. You can't buy that thing for anything more than par value of cash. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
The assets aren't very good.
So the market's not valuing their assets at hardly anything, and probably valuing that, continued drawdown in the future, right? So they're really basically, valued at what their cash balance is at this point. And that's exactly why I'm looking at it, because again, it's, not to say that they don't have viable business, but it's really the cash is really why you want to follow this company and what they do.
Which, I mean, if you're going to invest in them to invest in for the cash position, go buy a bank.
Right.
What's the point?
Well, I think the inference is that it's not going to stay cash on their balance sheet forever. They're going to do something with it, right? So, and that's going to be probably deployed into cannabis-based assets, and that's what people would be invested in for, as opposed to just cash on the balance sheet in like a bank structure. But I want to see what they do next. And I'm
I mean, the company did 24.8 million top line last quarter in their earnings report, and they're valued at $770 million.
Wow.
Yeah. But Ben's right. I mean, the market literally is saying your assets are not worth anything.
Yeah.
We don't even want to give you the amount of par value for your cash.
Yeah. Stephen, I just want to let you know, we did reach out to the crew over at MSOs Advisor Shares, Dan, Noah, and Mackenzie. So if you're watching right now, Dan or Noah, just let us know why MariMed, you're not buying with the MSOs ETF anymore. We had some people reach out to us asking why. So once we hear back from them, we'll let all of you know. It's December 11th, and you can tell we're scraping for obviously stories here in the cannabis space. So let's gladly move to the psychedelic space, where Missouri GOP lawmakers, they filed bills to legalize psilocybin therapy and fund clinical trials for 2024, which is pretty exciting. Under the proposals, adults 21 and older who are diagnosed with a qualifying condition such as PSD or substance misuse disorder, they can legally access laboratory tested psilocybin. Ben, it's an interesting story to say the least.
Yeah, it is interesting because we're seeing movement at the state level to legalize these, therapies when, off the bat, right? And to move towards, being able to use this in a clinical setting. And this sort of dovetails on what happened in California a few months ago, where they legalized psychedelic assisted therapy when those compounds became Schedule 3, whenever that happens. So we're seeing the states sort of move in advance of the rescheduling of certain substances, and they're taking action here, these lawmakers, to allow people with conditions such as PTSD to access laboratory tested psilocybin for these therapies. And of course, there's some caveats to it. It's capped at 150 milligrams, for example. You have to be a qualifying patient through the parameters that they administer. But yes, they want to go ahead and give these substances with people with the right conditions to have these therapies done. And at the state level, this is a good sign.
Very good sign for the industry. Curious to see how this space is going to perform. We've talked about it a lot the last few podcasts, the last couple of weeks, when we might get news from MAPS as to when they're going to submit their drug application and when that Series A financing could close. Who knows when that's going to happen? But needless to say, this industry needs to wake up. We've had a few companies that have actually had some good trading sessions recently, but yeah, it's slowly but surely, like anything, this space is going to take some time. But, with MDMA potentially taking place back end of 2024, which I think is probably not going to be until Q4 if and when they do get FDA approval, a sign in the right direction with this announcement here today, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. When you want to see the states act, and the states are acting to get in front of the descheduling of these substances when they go through the proper testing. And they're setting up the apparatus now at the state level, and hopefully at the federal level will come at some point.
One thing I learned last week too, because I know a lot of veterans get a lot of attention, but this actually grabbed my attention. 40,000 nonprofit military organizations in the U.S. alone. So a lot of obviously conversation pertaining to that industry, or I should say that group of people related to PTSD. But wow, there's probably a lot of conversations that are taking place. I didn't realize there was that many, but needless to say, this conversation is not going anywhere based on that number, right?
No, this conversation is just getting bigger. If anything, we're just breaking the surface of allowing veterans and those in need to actually access these therapies. I think you're going to see this gain a lot more momentum and get a lot more widespread in 2024.
Yeah, and it needs to. All right, gents, that concludes our first segment, Into the Wire, highlighting the biggest headlines today in cannabis, psychedelics, crypto, and AI. Let's now move to our second segment of this TDR Traded Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network, which is our daily movers. And Anthony will begin with the crypto space, and Bitcoin was down today. How much and why?
So Bitcoin was down. Oh, it's actually rebounded a little bit. It was down like 8% today at the low. GBTC finished the day, which is the Bitcoin investment trust.
Yep.
Finished down the day, I think down 9%. 8.5% at the close. The thing that sucks about crypto, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up, with investing in Bitcoin versus like a Bitcoin ETF. So the thing with crypto is everything is on chain and it's public and it's verifiable.
Okay.
So Saturday morning, I wake up, I'm on my computer messing around, reading some news. I see a tweet. Oh, there's been massive Bitcoin inflows from cold wallets onto on-chain, which means usually that someone's loading up Bitcoin to sell. You don't load up crypto on-chain from cold storage unless you're going to sell or trade.
Okay.
It's not a buying event.
Okay.
If I would have done that, I would have probably sold in real time and been able to save myself this 8 to 10% dip that we've seen. I was in GBTC, so I couldn't. So I dollar cost average down today instead. But I mean, crypto is a double-edged sword investing in these structured products such as ETFs. I did it just because that's where I wanted to silo the cash in my portfolio, and GBTC trades at a discount to NAV. And it's also one of the speculated beneficiaries of being flipped over to a spot ETF. So I'm watching GBTC and I'm watching BTC here to turn around on this dip.
Interesting to say the least. So your analysis from Saturday morning, even though you didn't react, pretty much was intact with what you were thinking was going to happen.
Yeah, they were 1,000% right. And you can see that stuff with on-chain analytics. You can see when people are moving Ethereum on-chain, which is usually to sell. You can see when people are moving Bitcoin on-chain, which is usually an indicator to sell. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that do on-chain analytics. You can see whales wallets in real time and how they move. So if you see a large inflow from whales wallets for crypto going on-chain, it's usually going to be a sell event.
And is selling event in correlation with anything related to the holiday season, or has nothing to do with that whatsoever? None.
How much did today's event, Anthony, have to do with Elizabeth Warren? Because she came out just sound like,
I know that she posted
about banning crypto.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's Elizabeth Warren. She just mouths off about whatever she feels like every so often. She doesn't get a lot of things done. She does a lot of talking. Crypto has been threatened to be banned so many times now that Elizabeth Warren posturing up right now, I don't think is going to have any effect on it.
All right. Our crew from Advisor Shares has gotten back to us, but they basically have outlined, certainly may buy some more at any time. It's more of the nature of the fund's cash flows and how creation units have been coming into the fund. We haven't had much free cash to work with. We've mostly just been buying off the top half of the portfolio and current weightings, with the market makers working with the swap counterparties. All right. That pretty much explains, I think, the case. That makes sense, guys.
There you go. News live and in real time.
Yeah.
You like that?
It sounds like the top of the funds, when they're adding, it's flowing towards the top without a ton of free cash flow. If they had huge inflows, I would bet it would run the gamut. Everybody from top to bottom would get a little piece of that.
Yeah. Nick Sanders writes, do you think coins trade more on news, on rumors, than trend lines? I just don't get the way it moves. Care to elaborate?
I'm not a technical trader. I don't look at trend lines. I mean, I look at volume, RSI, fundamentals, headlines for the most part if I'm buying an asset. I don't do a lot of short-term trading or look at any sort of technical stuff when it comes to crypto.
Urban Poison writes, what are his future plans to prove he's a hunter mentality? Also, there seems to be constant dilution of the stock. What's the reasoning? Will there ever do a share buyback? This pertains to John Levine and MaryMed. When he originally wrote, how about a year ago, they were the hunter mentality versus being hunted. I've yet to see a reason for that to be true. When you speak to John next, can you touch on this? I think what he was elaborating when I interviewed him a year ago, are they looking to buy different assets out or be bought out? And I think he made it very clear that they're in no state of mind to be selling the company at any given time, and that's true. But
And they did buy the Irmon assets to the commenter, and that was the assets that in Massachusetts that went into receivership. So they did make a move there. They probably got a favorable price. I don't know what that was. It wasn't disclosed. It was in the court system under receivership rules, but they did make some acquisitions, just not a big splashy one that you would see in the headlines.
well noted. All right, Ben, let's stick with you. Stock number 2, which is the largest market cap company in the psychedelic space, Compass Pathways, who's had some very, as I said off the top, really good trading sessions lately. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's almost surprisingly, actually, the last 3 sessions are up almost 30%. And I believe it has something to do with a study that was published in the Journal of Psychiatry, the JAMA Psychiatry Journal. And basically, it was a study on bipolar 2 depression disorder. It was small.
Yep.
It wasn't their main study. And the primary endpoint was a change in MATTERS score from baseline to week 3. And they knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was, mean change of baseline was 24 points at week 3. We saw Cybin come in recently, and they were 14 points, and this was higher than their main psilocybin comp 360 study from the past. And Robin Carhart Harris, the one of the most known people in the industry, he came out very favorably on the study. He tweeted about it, and apparently this has had an effect in trading because people have been buying the dip here. It's been trading at the all-time lows or at the yearly lows, which is also the all-time lows, and they're buying this up to past near resistance. So strong stock. I'm not sure it's actionable based on this small study, but when you put numbers out that strong, even if they're small, they get the market's attention, and maybe that was the signal to buy the dip. Maybe it's time to look at this stock a little bit further here.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually even moving up aftermarket as well.
Smart money
over 7. Yeah, 7.
It's over 7 bid ask. Yeah, I got 706 on the bid and 716 on the ask right now aftermarket. So it looks like continued strength, which is good for the name.
Smart money knows the long-term play here, right, Ben?
People could be extrapolating too, right? I mean, these results, I believe it was only 15 patients. It was a very small patient study, but the results were so strong that, sometimes people extrapolate that. I mean, this was comp 360 in the 25 milligram dose. So maybe they're extrapolating that on their main study and, saying, okay, it's working very well here, small numbers, but maybe it's going to work, good in their phase 3 and sort of build on, their phase 2 numbers. So yeah, I'm very happy for the company. It's the one I'm watching. Compass and Cybin have the best research among pubcos, in my opinion, in the psychedelic sector.
Always good for a company to get an endorsement from Robin Carhart Harris, needless to say.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go down to our third stock of our daily movers. You said it earlier, big, heavy volume today for New Lake Capital Partners, which trades on the OTC under the ticker symbol NLCP. Anthony, big day?
Yeah, so I mean, I hate to bring this up again on the mover segment, but I thought it was noteworthy of continuing to bring up the name. They traded 240,000 shares today.
Okay.
That is 3 times the amount of the heavily traded volume on Friday. That was around 78,000 shares. Couple of things. I think this is a direct beneficiary of the coverage that NLCP has been getting. This coincides with Pablo putting his overweight rating on it, as well as the coverage that we've had around the name. I think people are waking up and understanding that trading at a 30% discount to NAV, I mean, it's absurd. NLCP shouldn't be trading there. I'd be watching this name. I mean, seeing the volume day over day means that there are big buyers in there buying up this name right now. It traded about $3 million worth of stock today, which
Would
is
it close
probably
at?
a
Little over
it closed at
$14.
$14.10, 238,000 shares traded on the day. Market cap of 292 million as of right now, and that's a considerable move 2 days in a row to see record volume at about, not record volume, but increased volume at about 4 times the daily average on Friday.
Yeah.
And you're looking at 4 times that today. So, I mean, there's interest in this name. I'd expect it to probably go higher on continued strength, and I'll be watching it again tomorrow. And they are a client of ours, as I said.
Yeah. 13.30 was the opening trading at the opening price for the bell open a week ago today. So close to
it's it's the volume. I mean, I'd be looking at the volume over the price action. This is a thinly traded stock.
Yeah.
I've racked my brain. I've spoke to Anthony about it. I've asked him on the podcast, be like, hey, what's up with your volume? They're usually averaging around 17,000 shares a day. Once this starts to happen, it's a very, very good sign, especially with that compounding growth in volume session over session Friday to Monday.
Ben, can you maybe elaborate that from a technicality standpoint when a stock is thinly traded and when heavy volume, like what happens, I guess, not necessarily the day of, but what could ensue in the next week to two if it continues on this trend?
Well, yeah, I mean, it could portend a few things. I think in general, when you see big volume on a thinly traded stock, it means obviously someone took a position, right? And if you do that, then it makes, someone's taking a long-term position because it's not the type of stock that you just get in and out of because liquidity is a little bit lower than some of the other stocks out there. So someone's staking right here, and that's good because it's probably someone you can infer it's probably someone with a decent size capital. It's probably somebody in the know. Maybe it's somebody who read a credit investor who read Pablo's research or listen to us or whatnot. And especially when you have a float this size as well, it can make an outsized move when you have that large volume play, right? So a big order size can, move the price, 50, 10, 5, 10, 15%. And, it might, keep going there, or it may not sell off just because there's not a huge float to bring that price down. So it's hard to say what exactly it could mean, but in general terms, it's a good thing when you see bigger than average size and a corresponding move to go along with that.
Yeah, fair enough. I got a great idea. We need to get Pablo Zuanich on this podcast, right?
I would love to have Pablo on.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Reach out to him actually right after this show. All right,
we should
gents.
probably get Elmer on too in the next couple of weeks.
I reached out to him. Why am I drawing a blank? What's Elmer's last name again?
Piros.
Correct.
He was great to talk to.
Follows the psychedelic space closely. That's actually a great reminder. I reached out to him around a month ago, and he, I think, was kind of in a blackout period where he couldn't really actually make it appearances on. I think he was about to take on a new position, so I don't know what that is, but maybe a good time to reach back out to him because I haven't heard any news since. But needless to say,
he was at Simon's results when they released it in New York City. And
was he?
One of the analysts asking questions to Doug and the team. So he'd be a really good person to talk to for interpretation of those latest phase 2 results.
Good point. Elmer, if you're watching, we're reaching out to you. We're going to have you on this week. All right, gents, that pretty much wraps up our Daily Movers section here on the TDR Trade Black podcast here at the Benzinga Television Network. If you want to find out more information about what to expect end of year and heading into the new year for the spaces that we're covering, make sure to log on to thedalesreport.com and subscribe to our TDR newsletter, which is all crafted and put together by our very own Benjamin A. Smith, the brains of this company. Anyways, long story short, make sure to subscribe. And as well, if you want to become a trader, log on to benzinga.com and become a Benzinga Pro member today. Just a quick recap, everything. MSO starting the week. We're starting to head into the holiday season where things get to be a little bit slow. Compass Pathways up over 30% over the last 3 trading days. New Lake Capital attracting some heavy volume. And finally, Bitcoin was down 10% on the day. I'll let you guys run. Anthony, enjoy the Monday Nighter. I've got the Dolphins by 14 tonight.
I hope so. I hope we're not looking forward to the Jets next week. I mean, Tennessee's a decent team.
Yeah. Where are you sitting?
I am sitting 45-yard line, 6th row.
Ooh, nice. What's a ticket cost? 45-yard line, 6th row at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami.
Enough.
Is it?
That's probably what, $700-800 territory there?
About there.
Did you guys see the prices of some of the college football playoff games? Michigan, Alabama. I think they're going for minimum at the Rose Bowl close to $1,000 and going as high.
Fun fact, most expensive sports ticket I've ever purchased was a Toronto Maple Leafs playoff game. I was so excited.
Yeah, you're not
sit eighth row behind the Leafs bench Maple Leafs, Bruins. I was like, it's Canada. This is early into the cannabis sector. I was like, it's Canada. This is a playoff game. This is hockey. I was like, this is going to be amazing. And then we get there, and it's just zero energy.
Yeah. Well,
it was
the working class sits in the upper bowl, and the whole lower bowl is all corporate. There's actually a episode on Spit and Chicklets. Paul Bissonnette was basically explaining what is going on in Toronto, because Austin Matthews had back-to-back nights of having a hat trick at 6 goals in 2 games, and literally there was like hardly any crowd noise whatsoever. And it's just like, it's time to switch the crowd from upstairs to downstairs and start to get some of the passionate fans down below. But it's definitely overrated. There's a lot of corporate environment down below, that's for sure.
Yeah.
How many goals does Matthews have?
It's got to have a lot.
16,
17, 16?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who is the leading. I keep watching Ovechkin. I want to see if he breaks Wayne Gretzky's record. He's only got 5 goals this year.
Isn't Bedard scoring goals like a madman?
Yeah, it's pretty insane what he's doing.
He's slowed down recently, but
yeah. All right, that wraps it up. Mitch is like, let's get out of here. All right, gents, we'll see you Wednesday. TDR Trade Black podcast here at the Benzinga Television Network.
Mitch literally just gave us the hook.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our